I'm Whit Johnson, reporting from Maui. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Tonight, the fight to win the swing states.
America is ready for a new and optimistic generation of leadership that is all of us.
We can't let her be president. I don't want to be rude about it. We can't let her be president. This country is finished if that happens.
Just 18 days until the election, with both presidential candidates crisscrossing the state of Michigan tonight. Vice President Harris taking the fight to former President Trump, looking to cement those blue states as Trump challenges Harris's ability to hold office and doubles down on his January 6th comments. We're on the ground covering it all. Plus, the stunning images tonight, the moment when an Israeli tank fired on a building and killed the mastermind of the October 7th attack, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. What Sinwar's death means for the future of the Israel-Hamas conflict, as President Biden tells world leaders this is now an opportunity to seek peace. And
it is remarkable to look around the table in the cabinet room and to see America.
We had a conversation in Spanish, the four of us, and that to me was such a source of pride.
American cabinet. We sit down with some of the nation's top decision makers, bringing their true selves to this truly diverse cabinet. What they say are the biggest challenges ahead as they open up on their journeys to the White House. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jay O'Brien in for Linsey Davis tonight. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We're following those stories and much. But we do begin tonight, just 18 days till the final votes are cast, with the race for the White House. A virtual dead heat tonight. The two candidates crisscrossing Michigan today. Vice President Kamala Harris in that must-win blue wall state, questioning her opponent's fitness for the toughest job in the world after he backed out of some interviews. His campaign reportedly saying that he's exhausted. Trump, meantime, in Michigan as well, saying he's exhilarated and touting the endorsement of a Democratic mayor in that state, appealing to Arab American voters frustrated by the Biden administration's handling of the war in Gaza. And Harris also pressed on that key question: how would she be different than President Biden? Senior congressional correspondent Rachel Scott leading us off tonight from the campaign trail in Detroit.
Tonight, with just 18 days to go, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump in the same state, the battleground state of Michigan. In fact, they'll be in the same city, Detroit.
Welcome to Michigan.
In Michigan, Harris and Trump are separated by less than 1 point in the polls. Harris remains laser-focused on trying to win the so-called blue wall states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. 3 stops in Wisconsin yesterday, 3 stops in Michigan today. And in these final days, clearly sharpening her attacks against Trump.
We are clear. Someone who suggests we should terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again have the privilege of standing behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again. Never again.
And overnight in Wisconsin, when anti-abortion protesters tried to interrupt.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
For weeks, Harris has been challenging Trump to another debate. He has refused. Trump turned down 60 Minutes over fact-checking. And tonight, Harris jumping on reports the Trump campaign turned down another interview because Trump is exhausted.
And now he is ducking debates and canceling interviews. Come on. And check this out. His own campaign team recently said it is because of exhaustion. Well, if you are exhausted on the campaign trail, it raises real questions about whether you are fit for the toughest job in the world.
Trump on the defensive.
What event have I canceled? I haven't canceled. She doesn't go to any events. She's a loser. She doesn't go to any events. I've gone 48 days now without arrest, and I've got that loser who doesn't have the energy of a rabbit. Tell me when you've seen me take even a little bit of a rest. Not only am I'm not even tired. I'm really exhilarated.
In 2016, Trump won Michigan by just over 10,000 votes. In 2020, Trump lost by 154,000 votes. And just last week, while campaigning here in Detroit, Trump insulted the city he was campaigning in.
Our whole country will end up being like Detroit if she's your president. You're going to have a mess on your hands.
Trump today visiting his campaign office in the city of Hamtramck outside Detroit, where he's been endorsed by the Democratic mayor. Michigan has one of the largest Arab American populations in the country, and Trump is trying to appeal to Arab American voters who are frustrated by the Biden administration's handling of the war in Gaza. And Harris, after drawing a line between a potential Harris presidency and Joe Biden on Fox News.
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency.
Harris pressed on her boss once again today, and any Biden policy she would change.
I mean, to be very candid with you, even including Mike Pence, vice presidents are not critical of their presidents. I think that really actually, in terms of the tradition of it and also just going forward, it does not make for a productive and important relationship.
We move on tonight to a near mid-air disaster that was averted after an American Airlines passenger jet and a Cessna suddenly entered the same airspace, coming just 400 feet apart. Thankfully, the American Airlines pilots were alerted by their warning system. ABC's transportation correspondent Gio Benitez has this report.
Tonight, the FAA investigating how a packed 737 and a Cessna nearly collided head-on in midair this week over Texas.
If you want to declare a near miss, let us know.
American Airlines Flight 2587 was making its final approach to Austin Bergstrom International Airport around 10:45 a.m. Wednesday in foggy conditions when, according to the FAA, a single-engine Cessna R-182 unexpectedly entered the flight path. This animation showing the Cessna, which at the time was not in communication with air traffic controllers, flying underneath the American plane, coming within 400 feet of it. The American crew alerted by the plane's Traffic Collision Avoidance System, or TCAS, the system warning the pilots to change course immediately to avoid a mid-air collision.
Did you ever see him the second time around? We saw when he flashed us and flew right into us.
There were a series of things that led up to this near mid-air collision, but the American jet had a capability on board that warned it and told it to turn away from this small, light civil aircraft. So at the end of the day, it was the technology on board the American aircraft that saved this from becoming a disaster.
Gio Benitez joins us now. Gio, feels like we're seeing more and more of these incidents. What does the FAA say tonight?
Well, Jay, it turns out that just days ago, the FAA actually began auditing 45 of the nation's busiest airports to really understand why we're seeing so many of these close calls. It's going to be a long investigation, but hopefully some important answers there, Jay.
Gio Benitez reporting for us tonight. Gio, thank you. Turning overseas tonight, in a moment you will see that stunning new video, an Israeli tank firing on the building where the mastermind of the October 7th attack was hiding. Tonight, Israeli authorities say he was killed reportedly by a gunshot to the head. And now that burning question this evening, was that Hamas leader hiding near hostages who had been killed? Tom Sufi Burge in Israel tonight.
New video tonight showing the moment an Israeli tank fired on the building where the architect of the October 7th terror attack was hiding in Rafah. This grisly image showing Yahya Sinwar's body in the rubble. An autopsy now revealing he was killed by a gunshot to the head, according to the New York Times, not far from the tunnel where the bodies of 6 hostages, including American Hersh Goldberg-Polin, were found executed by Hamas in August. And tonight, questions on whether Sinwar had been hiding near those hostages who were killed. Israel saying Sinwar's DNA was also found in that same tunnel network. Israeli reservists finding Yahya Sinwar by accident, taking him out after a fierce gun battle in Gaza. Moments earlier, an Israeli military drone had captured the Hamas leader's final minutes alive, sitting in that chair, face covered and badly wounded by gunfire. Hamas today confirming Sinwar is dead, saying he was defiant to the end, throwing a stick at the drone. And Hamas doubling down, insisting the fight will continue and vowing no hostages will be released until Israel withdraws from Gaza. At this hour, Hamas still holding at least 97 hostages, including 7 Americans, inside Gaza.
I'm doing everything I can. I just want to keep back so badly.
Aviva Siegel and her husband Keith, an American, both kidnapped by Hamas. Aviva released in November. Tonight, fearing the worst.
I'm scared that maybe they will torture them or even just kill them.
But President Biden today cautiously optimistic after meeting with allies in Europe.
We think there's a road to peace there. It's going to be harder, it's going to be difficult, but we're all on the same page.
Tom joins us now live from Tel Aviv. Tom, what else is President Biden saying tonight about the possibility of a ceasefire?
Well, look, Jay, President Biden, U.S. officials, they are cautiously optimistic after Sinwar's death. I mean, they say there could now be a road, a potential road to peace in Gaza. But look, remember, Israel is still weighing that retaliatory strike on Iran for that barrage of missiles at the beginning of the month. That retaliatory strike could have come at any moment. And look, President Biden is saying he's in the loop on what Israel's planning and when an expected attack on Iran could come. Jay?
Tom in Israel tonight. Tom, thank you. Let's bring in now ABC News contributor and former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense for the Middle East, Mick Mulroy. Mick, as always, thank you for joining us. And I do want to start with where we just left off with Tom, which is President Biden saying that this killing of Yahya Sinwar creates a, quote, opportunity to seek a path to peace. Does that sit right with you? Does this mean eliminating Sinwar does increase or does it decrease, frankly, the likelihood for a peace agreement here?
So, Jay, the thought behind this is not only was Sinwar the leader of Hamas and the operational planner, but likely the biggest obstacle toward a ceasefire negotiated settlement. He was also known as the butcher of Khan Yunis for butchering Palestinians. So he did not have the interest of Palestinians in mind and therefore had no real interest to see this come to an end. And I think that him being eliminated, we don't know who's going to replace him, but I think it's unlikely that somebody that is more or less prone to a ceasefire is going to replace him. So any opportunity should be taken, and I think this will be an opportunity. The deputy, Khalil al-Hayya, is apparently in Doha and has been involved in negotiations for over a year. So if this is the individual that they choose, then I think this is an opportunity, as President Biden stated, to restart negotiations and hopefully get these hostages out of Gaza.
Well, that's exactly where I want to take it next, because this has obviously been praised by the Israelis as a successful counterterrorism operation. But as you know better than anyone, with counterterrorism, sometimes when you kill the leader of an organization, sometimes it throws that organization into chaos, and then other times the organization just replaces that individual with someone else, potentially someone who is even more radical. What is your view on, to the point you just made, who may be replacing Sinwar, and does this change fundamentally Hamas's structure at all?
So terrorist organizations, like military organizations, have a very defined chain of command because they have to be able to replace individuals quickly because they expect fatalities up and down the chain of command. But it's always important to take out key leaders. It disrupts planning. It throws, as you said, the organization into chaos. And essentially, with somebody like Sinwar, who was so well known and revered inside the group, it's very difficult to replace him. He does have a brother believed to be in Gaza, Mohammed Sinwar. He might be the replacement, but it's always important to take somebody like this off the battlefield, not only because it damages the organization, but it is retribution. He was, after all, the main planner for October 7th, and it had to happen. This individual needed to be removed from the battlefield.
I want to go back to something Tom said, which is Israel has multiple fronts to watch here. Firstly, of course, that conflict in Gaza where Sinwar was killed, and then, of course, Lebanon, that conflict against Hezbollah now, and also the potential, the promised retaliation against Iran for that missile attack some time ago now. What do we have in terms of intelligence about Israel's next move here?
So, Jay, I think originally they were waiting for this THAAD missile battery to be able to get into the country because it really does amp up the Israeli defenses. If they retaliate, we all expect that they will. Sinwar is not going to change that. They still need to retaliate for the October 1st attack by Iran and Israel. They want to be ready for the response from Iran. So they already have this THAAD in country. It's likely already set up and operational. That provides them the ability, the confidence, if you will, that they will be ready for any retaliation, because most expect that they won't go after the nuclear sites and the energy infrastructure as requested by the United States. But that doesn't mean it won't be a substantial retaliation against military targets in Iran. I think that's what everybody expects. And of course, it could spark a response by Iran.
Mick Mulroy, thank you as always for your time on this Friday night. Out west now to California, and that fast-moving brush fire in the city of Oakland, a neighborhood evacuated and multiple structures burned. This as another fire sparked in Los Angeles County. ABC's Jacqueline Lee is with us now. Jacqueline, what is the latest on that fire in Oakland?
That's right, Jay. The fire is very concerning. As you said, it started as a brush fire. It quickly spread to a neighborhood and has burned multiple homes. Take a look as firefighters try to fight this from the ground. At one point, they had to reportedly retreat. They also fought it from the air. Evacuation orders are in place, and they had to shut down a stretch of the 580 freeway because the flames are so close. Jay, authorities are very concerned about the high winds going into tonight. Red flag warnings remain in effect through tomorrow night throughout much of the state of California. Jay.
Jacqueline Lee for us. Jacqueline, thank you. Now to an alarming new report from the CDC showing rates of obesity have increased dramatically in kids and teens over the past 2 decades. The Centers for Disease Control saying since 1999, obesity in people ages 2 to just under 20 jumped more than 7%. Severe obesity jumped more than 3%. The CDC recommends preventative measures, including moving more as a family and replacing screen time with more quality time. Onwards tonight for us to those opening arguments in the Delphi double murder trial more than 7 years after teens Libby and Abby were found dead after hiking on a trail. Prosecutors describing their final moments and detailing the gruesome crime scene. And a warning tonight, it is disturbing. ABC's Alex Perez is in Delphi tonight.
Tonight, more than 7 years after 2 young girls were killed while hiking in Delphi, Indiana, the trial of the men accused in their murders now underway. For the first time, prosecutors describing the gruesome scene, telling jurors they will see the crime scene and that there was blood everywhere and the girls' throats had been cut. 13-year-old Abby Williams and her friend, 14-year-old Libby German, disappeared after that hike on the Menonhai Bridge Trail. Their bodies discovered Valentine's Day 2017. In court, prosecutors saying that after the teens crossed that bridge, they noticed a man behind them. At 2:13 p.m., Libby recording on her phone, capturing this video allegedly showing the suspect. The man, investigators say, pulling out a gun and ordering the girls down the hill, heard in this chilling audio. But the defense raising questions about DNA evidence and arguing cell phone records show Allen had left the area by 2:15 p.m. On the witness stand today, Libby's family described driving by, and that's when I realized they weren't alive, her grandmother said.
And ABC's Alex Perez joins us now live from Delphi, Indiana. Alex, how long is this trial expected to last?
Well, Jay, they expect this trial is going to last about a month. The jury has been sequestered, and the judge has ruled about 60 alleged confessions Allen made while in custody can be used in court. Jay?
Alex Perez for us. Alex, thank you. And a positive update to the harrowing story of a 49er player who was shot in the chest in August. Ricky Pearsall will make his NFL debut for the Niners on Sunday in a much-anticipated matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs at Levi Stadium 50 days after he was shot in a robbery attempt in San Francisco. He was back to practice for the first time this week, and General Manager John Lynch said, quote, after a horrific situation, he responded extremely well physically and attacked the work to get himself back. And this week, nearly 24 relatives of the Menendez brothers publicly pleaded for Lyle and Eric's freedom, trying to harness the recent public obsession with that brutal double murder case from 35 years ago. The family of the convicted killers is hoping that that push in the court of public opinion will help influence the real judicial system. Here's ABC News Nightline anchor Juju Chang.
After 35 years behind bars, the notorious Menendez brothers are just days away from learning if prosecutors will recommend a resentencing for the shotgun murders of their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion.
Lyle and Eric were failed by the very people who should have protected them, by their parents, by the system, by society at large.
Just this week, members of the Menendez family, including Kitty's own sister, who is 92, pleading for mercy. Seizing upon the renewed media frenzy surrounding the case with a popular Netflix documentary and a controversial drama series. Tonight, in this never-before-seen moment from Barbara Walters' exclusive interview with the brothers after their conviction, Lyle described a bond born out of shared trauma.
It's hard for people to understand, I guess, how close the two of you are. On the other hand, had you not been that close, all of this might never have happened.
It's true. I think in the environment we grew up in, home was like a fearful, demeaning place. And for Eric and I bet it's probably not uncommon for siblings that grow up in those kind of homes to be unusually close. And because they have to be there for each other and there's so much stress.
Prosecutors are now weighing evidence that seems to support their claims of sexual abuse at the hands of their father, including a new allegation from Roy Rossello from Menudo, who says Jose Menendez, a once powerful record executive, molested him too. And there's that letter Eric wrote to his cousin months before his murder, describing his fear of his father's alleged abuse. That cousin, Andy Cano, testified that Eric had confided in him.
He told me never to reveal it to anybody, to promise him that I would keep it a secret between us.
DA George Gascon could make his decision as early as next week.
Do you think the Menendez brothers will walk free someday?
Given the totality of the circumstances, I don't think that they deserve to be in prison until they die.
And there is still much more to get to for us here tonight.
From the 2024 campaign trail in Erie, Pennsylvania, I'm Rachel Scott. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back. As Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month ends this week, we're with 4 members of one of the most diverse cabinets in the nation's history. President Biden saying nearly 4 years ago he wanted a cabinet that looked like America. ABC's Maria Elena Salinas has their journey to the White House.
Yo siempre digo, I'm as American as apple pie and rice and beans. We belong here. We are America.
They are 4 of the most powerful officials in government, all Latinos serving in the Biden-Harris administration.
It is remarkable to look around the table in the cabinet room and to see America.
For National Hispanic Heritage Month, I sat down with these cabinet members to hear how their unique heritage has influenced their work. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas joined us right after for a separate interview.
We fled the communist takeover of Cuba, and I grew up with a very strong understanding of what it means for an individual to lose the country of one's birth and to be displaced not by choice, but by necessity.
Each of their stories showing a unique upbringing, an immigrant story.
My parents came from Aguado, Puerto Rico to Connecticut, and I was born in Connecticut.
My dad brought my mom from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico when he married her. They made sure their three daughters and 1 son had a chance to either serve in the military or go to college.
Do you guys get together, and if you do you decide to have either Mexican food or Puerto Rican food?
I remember having a conversation in the Oval Office. We had a conversation in Spanish, the 4 of us. And that to me was such a source of pride. And when we're together, we prefer the tequila or café puertorriqueño.
Secretary Becerra, you said that your mother used to say, mejor prevenir que remediar, which means it's better to prevent than to remedy. So what else needs to be done to ensure everyone has access to affordable health care?
We have to make sure we're reaching everyone, because one of the problems we have is too many people live in areas where it's hard to access the doctor or the hospital. So the more we make care available close by, that's how you reach a lot of these populations that are underinsured or uninsured.
Secretary Cardona, we're seeing some schools crack down on diversity and inclusion. How does that affect the state of education in the country?
We say bilingualism is a superpower. Biculturalism is a superpower. So our response to that is to be unapologetic. We know that students, when they have more than one language, they have more opportunities in life, and I'm living proof of that.
School shootings have become so common in this country. How can we guarantee a good education for our kids when they have to be worried about staying alive?
We've worked really hard through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act to provide $2 billion to provide safer schools, to provide up to 14,000 more school social workers, school counselors. We have to do more to protect our students and keep these assault weapons off our streets. It's not just a school issue, it's a community issue.
Administrator Guzman, you said that you grew up watching your father run a business. He had a veterinary clinic, right?
That's
and
correct.
you even worked at the veterinary clinic.
I got to witness that firsthand and understand the passion that goes into it, the grit, the determination, the vision, and the hard work every single day.
What is the biggest challenge for small businesses across the country, and how can it be solved?
Our small businesses have been challenged throughout this time of the COVID pandemic and post, but the top issues lately, of course, have been inflationary pressures, navigating supply chain, and we've really wanted to make sure that we could help level the playing field and get affordable access to capital.
Mayorkas is the first immigrant and Latino to serve as Secretary of Homeland Security. Both the Biden administration and Mayorkas himself have been criticized for their border policies, as the administration has grappled with record-breaking numbers of migrant encounters at the southern border in recent years, according to CBP data.
And we've all witnessed the devastating results of your open borders agenda.
It's an extraordinarily polarized issue, unfortunately. The only way to fix it is through legislation, congressional action. We're dealing with a system that has not been reformed since 1996. And the challenges of migration have changed dramatically over those 28 years.
What about the critique that you have an open border?
That is false. We've removed or returned more people this year than in any year since 2010. Tell that to the migrants who've been returned to their countries because they did not qualify for relief in the United States.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges facing the Latino community right now in the U.S.?
Latinos have the highest rate of work participation. You'll find that we're out there working harder, longer, but we make less. So let's pay the right amount for the work that's done.
I think it's definitely an underinvestment. If we invest in these highly entrepreneurial communities, they will deliver for America.
For Mayorkas, bigotry and prejudice are a top concern.
Discrimination continues to be a challenge, even in 2024. We need to understand the beauty of our heritage, the power we have, and to exercise that power.
How would you finish this sentence? The Latino community is?
Aspiring.
Incredibly diverse.
Growing. Beautiful, powerful, strong, and rich.
Maria Elena, thank you. Still ahead here on Prime tonight.
Reporting from the Normandy coast for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, I'm David Muir. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Welcome back. 38 states have legalized sports betting in some form since the Supreme Court overturned the federal ban in 2018. And 2 studies recently looked into how legalized sports betting online impacts bettors' financial health. Here's what they found in tonight's By the Numbers. Americans bet $14 billion in January of this year, just a snapshot of how popular it's all become, and up from just over $1 billion spent 5 years earlier. Average credit scores dropped by a percentage point within 4 years in states that legalized online betting. Not a small figure, according to researchers who crunched the numbers at UCLA and USC. And the likelihood of someone filing for personal bankruptcy increased by more than 25% 3 to 4 years after legalization. Unpaid debts also went up by about 8% in states with online betting. And when you bet, well, that reduces the amount of money you have to invest. Net investments dropped 14% within a couple years of a state legalizing sports betting. That, according to researchers at Northwestern, Brigham Young, and the University of Kansas. And a big concern, households with lower savings spent 32% more on gambling as a share of their income than other households did. The companies behind sports gambling websites do point out that they've recently created the Responsible Online Gaming Association in order to support more responsible betting. And much more ahead for us right here on Prime tonight, including new details on a deadly North Carolina home invasion. A second suspect is arrested and arraigned. But up next, he's one of the most influential leaders in sports, now using that to get people out to vote. We sit down with Doc Rivers on what he's doing this election season. A former NFL quarterback arrested, a kayak rescue, and a judge puts an end to a voter purge. These stories and more in tonight's Rundown.
As early voting began in North Carolina, a federal judge partially shot down a Republican-led effort to purge 225,000 people from the state's voter rolls. The North Carolina Republican Party and Republican National Convention sued the state's Board of Elections in August, claiming it unlawfully registered voters by failing to properly verify their identities, citing an issue in the voter registration form. The judge determined that the plaintiffs did not have standing to sue, but sent another claim to a state court. The second person arrested for a deadly Michigan home invasion was arraigned on charges including felony murder. Joshua Zuazo pled not guilty to all charges in the death of Hussein Murray nearly a week after Carlos Jose Hernandez was arrested in Louisiana. Officials said Murray was found dead in his basement on October 11th, with his wife found tied up with her hands duct taped. Murray's wife told officials the men came to the house claiming they were responding to a gas leak, with home security footage showing one of them in a utility worker's uniform. A Texas man set to be the first person executed in a case of shaken baby syndrome was granted a temporary hold. It came late Thursday night from the Texas Supreme Court after a series of back-and-forth legal maneuvers with a group of state lawmakers seeking for him to testify in a Monday legislative hearing on unreliable forensic science evidence. Robert Roberson was convicted of killing his 2-year-old daughter Nikki in 2002, but experts have challenged the shaken baby syndrome hypothesis used in the case in recent years. And Roberson's lawyers argued new evidence suggests Nikki died of pneumonia. Former NFL quarterback Jay Cutler was arrested in Tennessee on charges of driving under the influence and possession of a handgun. Police in Franklin said they responded to a collision where it appeared Cutler rear-ended another vehicle. They said they smelled alcohol on Cutler, that he had bloodshot eyes and was slurring his words. Cutler was taken to a hospital for a blood sample. 2 guns, including a loaded pistol, were also found in his vehicle. Cutler was eventually released on $5,000 bail. University of Virginia men's basketball coach Tony Bennett officially stepped down after 15 seasons. Bennett announcing the decision at a news conference, saying the current environment in college sports was one of the main reasons he felt it was time.
I'm no longer the best coach to lead this program.
Bennett led the Cavaliers to a national title in 2019, as well as 8 total ACC regular season and tournament titles. A 17-year-old kayaker was rescued by the Coast Guard in Hawaii after spending nearly 12 hours clinging to his kayak off of Oahu's south shore. The kayaker was separated from his high school paddling team Wednesday afternoon. He was spotted by a Coast Guard aircraft early Thursday and eventually reached by an off-duty lifeguard by boat. The teen was taken to the hospital in serious but stable condition.
They are some of the most internationally decorated and celebrated musicians who have now decided to join powers again. Natalia Lafourcade and Gustavo Dudamel. The pair brought their whimsical sounds to the Hollywood Bowl. Our Alex Perez got a chance to sit down with the two for a wide-ranging discussion.
This is so magic and celestial for me.
Some 22 years after her debut album, the magic of performing the stage never gets old for acclaimed singer Natalia Lafourcade.
When you get on stage, do you still have the butterflies? You still feel that feeling when you're walking onto the stage?
Yes, of course. So I feel nervous, and I feel like all those kind of things and butterflies in my belly.
She is one of the most lauded and awarded Latin artists.
Music is, she's the boss. I see music as a master, and it is something that I get to do, and I am so fortunate for that.
17 Latin Grammys under her belt, making her the most awarded female artist in the history of the Latin Recording Academy. Oh, and 4 Grammys, too.
And I love the fact that what I love makes so many people so happy.
The emotions and excitement on this day at the historic Hollywood Bowl in LA. Taking the stage for 2 sold-out performances accompanied by the LA Philharmonic and its superstar conductor, Gustavo Dudamel.
And this is un lugar histórico, ¿no? ¿Cómo se dice? Emblemático,
Yeah.
¿cómo dirías eso en
Iconic,
inglés?
historic.
Iconic and so important place to be making the music.
The duo reunited on stage for the first time since 2019.
Anda muchacho en la casa y me trae la cabina y yo.
Dudamel's orchestra, a perfect pairing with Lafourcade's warm, lyric soprano voice.
La luna me está mirando, yo no sé lo que me ve.
It's the most beautiful thing of music making. You know, it's not only to play in tune and to play together. If not, it's the joy. That is the feeling that people receive as an audience.
Lafourcade's music bends and combines genres, pulling from the past and present. And as a composer, she says she's constantly taking notes and recording sounds every single time an idea pops up.
Sometimes it's not so easy for me, you know, like you need to get into a zone. I don't have a formula. Also, like there's songs that I thought nobody was gonna like, or like it was just a song, and then it became something huge, like Hasta la Raíz.
Released in 2015, Hasta la Raíz is still one of her most popular and most played hits.
I never imagined how people were going to take those songs for their lives, and it was going to be so special.
¿Cuál es tu raíz cuando cantas esa canción? What do you think about when you're singing that song?
Now I think it's many things. It means my parents, my family, my culture, my roots. But it is also the stage, which for me is my other place to be able to give what I love the most and what I believe has become something that is good for people and for life and for this world.
The pair dedicating a special performance to the people of Venezuela, Dudamel's crisis-plagued native country.
Especially in these times, you know, of struggling with this crazy, difficult situation. But it reminds me the beauty of my country, and it makes me be hopeful for my people, because I'm sure, you know, we will pass these times, we will evolve. We have to always think in that way, be positive. Even in crisis, you know, try to make things work. But this is a way to say we love Venezuela, we love all Latin America, we love all the world.
Quiero agradecer muchísimo, Gustavo.
Together, on a stage like this, their connection is key.
¿Y si volteas a mirarlo a él cuando están ahí arriba?
Sí, nos estamos mirando, hay entradas, tenemos que estar siempre conectados ahí.
Por eso los ensayos no veo hacia el público, tengo que ver hacia los músicos, siempre, para poder saber qué está pasando, ¿no? Más allá de lo que escuchas.
Así es.
Entender la mirada, dice mucho, el cuerpo, todo habla, ¿no? Es un lenguaje muy profundo.
A profound partnership they hope will leave everyone wanting more.
Doc Rivers is a legend on and off the court, a head coach from the Milwaukee Bucks, and no stranger when it comes to social justice and voting rights. And he's taking this election beyond just the hardwood. ABC's DeMarco Morgan had the opportunity to sit down with the basketball legend. Here's part of that conversation.
I am so excited that you're with us. This is a dream come true for me to be sitting across from you.
For me as well. As I told you, I'm a huge fan, huge fan.
Thank you so much, man. So it's a busy time. We're a couple of weeks out from the election. You've been just as busy off the court, off the sidelines. Your thoughts when it comes to voting right now, how crucial is that?
It's crucial. And I look at voting as like in a two-piece set. Like, number one, we have fought to vote, minorities, women, and use it.
You're one of the greatest NBA coaches in our lifetime. What do you say to those who say you should just stick to coaching, get out of politics?
Well, we all should stick to whatever we do if you go by that. You should stick to doing TV. I should, of course, it's ridiculous. Everyone has to raise a village, right? We all have to put our hands in. You can still have a voice. Now, your choice is not to listen to me, and that's fine. But I am free to talk what I believe in, and so is everybody. I wish we had more compassion for everyone talking.
It was just last week that former President Barack Obama had a message for black men when it comes to voting, and he said it's unacceptable to sit this one out. Your thoughts about that?
I agree 100% with President Obama. But there are black men who are out there that feel hopeless. They don't believe a vote helps them in either way, and I'm here to tell them they're wrong.
But how much of that do you think, depends on the fact that Harris is a woman?
Oh, it's big. There's people who will not vote for Kamala Harris only because she's a woman. She would be the most qualified person in the history of our election. She's already worked for all three branches.
We're here in Milwaukee because the state of Wisconsin is a battleground state.
Yeah.
You look at the GOP, who hosted the RNC here.
Yeah.
This is one of Harris's first stop when she was moved up to the ticket.
Good evening, Milwaukee!
Your thoughts on the crucial time for Wisconsin voters who could decide the next president?
Yeah, just think Wisconsin can be the most powerful state in the union. You can look at it that way. I think this state is ready for that.
You've been in the game. You're a legend. We all know you. Does it still bother you that we are as divided as ever now?
Yeah, it hurts me. It's probably why I am so involved in this election, because our country should be coming together. And I felt like we were, and now we're not. We're all immigrants who live in this country. It's not right to typecast them as bad people. We got to get to the decency, we got to get to honesty, and we got to get to working together. If America looked at themselves as a basketball team, they wouldn't be winning right now because they're not together.
Those who are still on the fence. Wisconsin has a huge independent population.
Yes. They're just going to vote for who they think is the right person. That's what I think is so unique about Wisconsin. A lot of the places that are swing states, it's not because a lot of independent voters. There's a lot of voters who just haven't made up their mind which way they're going.
And I got a feeling you're not going anywhere anytime soon.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to keep speaking, and I hope I'm speaking the truth.
And DeMarco Morgan joins us now. DeMarco, thank you as always for that. Thank you for your reporting. It is so great to see you in person.
I'm just
my
as
friend.
excited to see you,
I
man.
know. We could do this all day.
All day.
But what stood out to you in addition to what you guys talked about from that conversation?
Well, I mean, clearly he's working for the Harris campaign, but the one thing that stood out to me, he was so much, impressed with the fact that he's out there working to get people just to exercise their right to vote. Whether you're voting independent, Republican, or Democrat, he just wants people to get out there and vote. And a lot of times he's had the conversation with his players. Of course, it's pretty tough when you put yourself in those positions, when you get into any type of politics and you're on the celebrity level or you have their platform. But he wanted to be very clear with everyone that he's come into contact with. Of course, he wants you to vote for his pick, but at the end of the day, it's about exercising your right to vote. And he's been fighting for voting rights and social justice for decades now.
In a crucial swing state, too. I mean, Wisconsin, crucial swing state. But I guess I want to go back to the fact that this is a huge undertaking for him. How does he find the time to fit all of this in?
I know, he's the head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks. How do you find the time, right? Actually, the next day after watching our story, he was at one of the local barbershops there in the community, G's Clippers, and he was speaking to voters, specifically African-American men, who, if you remember those comments from former President Barack Obama, who said that he was calling them out because of their lack of support for the VP there. But he was specifically speaking to that young group there at a barbershop. And that's just one of the many stops where he's around, the state, also around the entire country. I think he still has this place in California. He said he talks to people out there trying to encourage them to vote as well. But the bottom line, again, I can't stress it enough, and it was something that, again, stood out to me. Even though he is working with the Harris campaign, the bottom line is he wants people to get out there and vote. He calls it the most crucial election of our lifetime.
DeMarco Morgan, my friend, so good to see you. As always.
Good to be here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's our show for this hour. I'm Jay O'Brien, in for Linsey Davis. Stay tuned to ABC News Live for more news, context, and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks for streaming with us.